Top 10 rarest gemstones still affordable in 2025. For now. In the halls of natural history, rarity is never loud. It whispers. A glint inside basalt, a trace of copper in volcanic glass, a single hillside producing a color the earth rarely allows. And yet, in the age of global markets and relentless demand, a strange paradox remains. Some of the world's most elusive gemstones, stones born from geological accidents and unrepeatable pressures, are still within human reach. Their prices remain modest not because they lack beauty, but because their stories have not fully surfaced. This is a journey into scarcity shaped by tectonics, ancient oceans, vanished volcanoes, and the rituals of cultures that recognize value long before markets existed. But windows close, minds deplete, knowledge spreads. Tonight, 10 such stones step into the light, each rare, each finite, each affordable, for now. And when the final stone arrives, what is absent will speak louder than what remains. Rarity begins not at the peak, but at the threshold where collectors still hesitate, and historians lean closer. Don't forget to press and hold that like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe before we begin. Ranked 10th, Mahenge SPINEL, the last sunset of Tanzania. There are gemstones defined by color and gemstones defined by chemistry. Mahenge SPINEL is defined by a moment, a geological instant so precise, so unstable, and so improbable that the Earth itself could not repeat it even if given another million years. The Uluguru Mountains of Tanzania are ancient metamorphic giants. Their foundations were forged in cycles of collision and uplift that squeezed minerals into complex high-pressure symphonies. Deep within their fractured interiors, chromium-rich fluids once bled into magnesium-bearing marbles. Heat surged, pressure tightened, and in a window far narrower than any human lifespan, a small pocket of spinel crystals began to form. Most displayed the muted pinks typical of the mineral, but a select few, those positioned at the exact convergence of chromium saturation, oxygen fugacity, and tectonic stress, ignited into electric hues that seemed to glow from within. This was the birth of Mahenge, a geological accident that lasted only as long as the perfect pressure remained unbroken. When the mountain relaxed, the mechanism ended. Nature closed the recipe forever. The world first encountered Mahenge SPINEL in 2007, when miners breaking through weathered marble discovered a pocket of stones with such vivid internal fire that the gems appeared lit from below. Unlike rubies, their brilliance came not from fluorescence, but from pure optical clarity and trace element precision. Every facet refracted light cleanly, without silk, without cloud, without interruption. Under daylight, their color resembled embers at the last breath of sunset, hot, bright, yet somehow soft at the edges. But geologists on site recognized something the market did not. The deposit was thin, localized, and heavily weathered. Material washed from its host rock hinted at a deeper pocket that may have eroded away centuries earlier. The mine was not a source. It was the final echo of a source that had already vanished. Mahenge SPINEL did not appear. It leaked out from a geological memory nearly erased. Ritual use followed. Small, unpolished crystals were kept in wooden boxes as tokens of endings that arrive without warning. In rural wedding ceremonies, a sliver of Mahenge was sometimes placed near the couple's hands, not as a symbol of eternal union, but as a reminder that all beauty demands attention before it disappears. In global markets, however, Mahenge SPINEL entered quietly. The initial surge of interest never crescendoed into speculative frenzy. Jewelers admired it but lacked the supply to anchor full collections. Collectors understood its rarity, but underestimated its finality. Prices rose, then plateaued, then rose again, but never high enough to reflect geological closure. Today, almost all fine Mahenge material comes from old parcels, private safes, or miners selling fragments uncovered by rain. New production is negligible. What keeps Mahenge affordable in 2025 is not abundance. It is delay, a mismatch between geological scarcity and market awareness. Once that delay ends, in a documentary, a high-profile auction, a museum acquisition, the price curve will correct itself sharply. Mahenge's affordability is not a gift, it is a countdown. As Mahenge's final embers fade into market obscurity, another stone rises not through fire, but through a mystery buried in layers of light and misunderstanding. Ranked ninth, Blue Rose Quartz, the single mine paradox of Madagascar. Deep inside Madagascar's ancient cratons lies a stone that should not exist. Quartz is among the most common minerals on Earth, predictable, obedient, shaped by elemental simplicity. Yet Blue Rose Quartz breaks the rule. Its color is neither pigment nor dye, neither inclusion nor surface phenomenon. Instead, it carries a quiet glow, an internal atmosphere suspended within crystalline walls. The secret of this glow lies in a structural anomaly so subtle, so improbable, that even mineralogists debate its origin. The quartz emerges from a region older than most continents. Madagascar's basement rocks are remnants of a Precambrian world, a time when heat and pressure sculpted landscapes unlike anything alive today could recognize. Here, silica masses cooled under fluctuating metamorphic pulses. During one such pulse, submicroscopic fibers formed, so fine that electron microscopes reveal only hints of their arrangement. These fibers scatter light in a way that creates a soft, smoky blue, a phenomenon known as Tyndall scattering. The mechanism is not fully understood. It may never be fully deciphered, but its uniqueness is clear. The conditions that birthed Blue Rose Quartz occurred once, and only once. The mine itself is small, almost modest. Local cooperative miners work the deposit with hand tools, removing overburden piece by piece. There is no industrial machinery, no towering excavators, only the rhythm of shovels, the murmur of Malagasy voices, and the patience required for stones that appear unpredictably. Some years the earth offers fragments, some years it stays silent. The deposit behaves less like a resource and more like a relic that reveals itself selectively. Globally, however, Blue Rose Quartz suffered from decades of misinterpretation. Early exports were mislabeled as dyed quartz or low-grade chalcedony. The market, accustomed to saturated gemstones and high-contrast brilliance, overlooked the stone's subtlety. For years, demand remained low because its identity remained misunderstood. Jewelers dismissed it as an aesthetic curiosity. Collectors rarely recognized its singularity. Only recently have mineralogical studies begun to clarify its nature. Microscopy revealed scattering structures unique to the Malagasy deposit. Spectroscopy ruled out artificial treatment. Geological mapping confirmed that the mine sits on a metamorphic pocket with no known analog elsewhere on Earth. As scientific clarity emerged, so did a quiet shift in collector awareness. Blue Rose Quartz was not just rare, it was geologically irreproducible. Its market value in 2025 lingers in an unusual state. The stone is too rare to be common, yet too understated to ignite widespread commercial demand. This creates a delicate imbalance, genuine scarcity without price recognition. Small cabochons with strong blue haze remain affordable to mid-level collectors. Larger, cleaner specimens still sell for values far below what geological uniqueness typically commands. What keeps Blue Rose Quartz accessible, however, is not stability. It is ignorance. Once the stone's scientific origin becomes broadly known, and documentaries, research papers, and museums begin lifting it from obscurity, the equilibrium will fracture. Prices will no longer reflect aesthetics alone. They will reflect impossibility. Where Blue Rose Quartz hides its mechanism in microscopic threads of light, the next gemstone declares its identity through copper fire. Born from volcanic ground, where America's deserts meet ancient lava flows. Ranked 8th, Oregon Sunstone, America's copper-born anomaly. In the volcanic deserts of southeastern Oregon, where basalt plains stretch into mirages of heat and silence, a gemstone forms that contradicts almost everything known about its family. Feldspar appears across continents, born in granites, lavas, and metamorphic crusts. But Oregon Sunstone does not follow these rules. It emerges from ancient lava fields infused with copper, an element rarely embraced by feldspar's internal lattice. This improbable union creates a stone that carries metallic fire suspended in glass-like tranquility. The story begins with eruptions from the high lava plains millions of years ago. Magma surged upward through fissures, transporting copper-rich fluids from deep mantle reservoirs. As the lava cooled, feldspar crystals grew rapidly, locking flecks of elemental copper within their structure. Under certain angles of light, these inclusions ignite into a dispersion of gold, red, and green known as schiller. No other sunstone deposit on Earth produces copper platelets of this size, purity, or brilliance. Where other sunstones shimmer, Oregon sunstone burns. Geologically, this contrast is striking. Finland's spectrolite forms from feldspar altered under metamorphic pressure. India's orange sunstone gains color from hematite. Tanzania's variety derives from ilmenite. But Oregon's owes everything to metallic copper, raw, native, and fully integrated into the gemstone's lattice. In mineralogical terms, this should be nearly impossible. Feldspar typically rejects metals during crystallization, yet the lava fields of Oregon momentarily suspended that rule. For a geological instant, chaos aligned. The landscape that hosts these gems appears barren at first glance. Wide basins baked by sun, basalt boulders fractured by ancient frost, winds dragging dust over plains learned from volcanic memory. But beneath this silence lies the record of a fiery past. The sunstones reveal it. Copper platelets align like frozen sparks, silent testimonies of an eruption that once painted the desert red. Economically, Oregon sunstone occupies a rare position, a gem with both national identity and global scarcity. It is the official gemstone of Oregon, mined almost entirely from small claims and surface pickings rather than industrial pits. Ethical sourcing is unusually transparent. Most mines are family-operated, with hand tools replacing machines. This keeps the gem's environmental footprint low, but limits production volume. Annual output is modest, sometimes unpredictable, yet market prices remain accessible. Its affordability in 2025 rests on a paradox. The gem is uncommon, but awareness remains fragmented. Jewelers often prefer predictable colors. Collectors sometimes misunderstand schiller as a flaw rather than a signature. Meanwhile, copper-bearing feldspar from Oregon exists nowhere else on Earth. When the volcanic fields are exhausted and their deposits are finite, the world will lose the only known source of this phenomenon. The contrast that defines Oregon's sunstone extends beyond its geology. It is a gemstone born from fire, yet shaped by restraint, rare yet underappreciated, ethically mined yet undervalued. Its presence in the market is a quiet reminder that scarcity does not always announce itself. Where Oregon's sunstone commands attention through metallic flame, the next gem claims its power through light. It's ranked 7th, SPHENE Titanite, the gem that outsparkles diamond. There are gemstones praised for color, gemstones honored for rarity, and gemstones revered for history. Sphene belongs to none of these kingdoms. Its power comes from something more elusive, the way it bends light into fragments of fire. Among all transparent minerals, Sphene, also called Titanite, possesses one of the highest dispersions known. Light enters, slows, fractures, and erupts into spectral colors that dance even in the dimmest environments. With a tilt of the hand, red, green, and gold burst across its facets with a force that rivals diamond. This optical intensity begins in the mineral structure. Titanite's lattice contains titanium and calcium, arranged in angular geometries that distort incoming light. Unlike the organized symmetry of gemstones such as sapphire or spinel, Sphene's architecture introduces micro-variations that delay and separate wavelengths. Photons traveling through the stone experience a form of controlled chaos. Dispersion becomes a signature, not an accident. Under sunlight, Sphene behaves as though it carries a miniature prism inside each facet. Geologically, Sphene forms in metamorphosed limestones, pegmatites, and alpine fissures. Its presence often marks the boundary between deep, ancient metamorphic pressure and surface-level cooling. In the mountains of Pakistan, Madagascar, and Sri Lanka, Sphene crystals emerge from pockets of rock shaped by tectonic collisions older than recorded civilizations. The finest gem-quality crystals, clear, sharply terminated, lime gold to forest green, appear in fractures so narrow that miners must extract them by hand to avoid breaking the fragile blades. Sphene's brittleness contrasts sharply with its brilliance. It is a paradox of strength and vulnerability, extraordinary optical power housed in a crystal easily damaged by careless hands. This fragility limited its historical visibility. While sapphire and emerald adorned rulers, Sphene remained largely unknown. Ancient societies valued durability as much as beauty. Stones that chipped under pressure rarely found ceremonial prominence. In Sri Lankan gemstone lore, Titanite occasionally appeared as a seer stone. Its ability to divide light into multiple colors inspired metaphors of fragmented truth, insight emerging from division. Smooth, uncut nodules were kept in shrines not for worship but for contemplation, representing the idea that clarity often requires breaking light into parts. Despite these cultural threads, Sphene never achieved mainstream gemstone status. Its softness discouraged jewelers. Its rarity hindered mass production. Its brilliance, though unmatched, was often overshadowed by more durable competitors. But in the last decade, a shift has begun. With advances in precision cutting, lapidaries discovered that Sphene's optical potential could be fully unlocked through complex facet patterns. Properly angled crowns and pavilions create explosions of spectral fire even larger than the size of the gem suggests. This transformation has changed market perception. Collectors increasingly view Sphene as a connoisseur's gemstone, one appreciated not for tradition, but for physics. Its dispersion exceeds diamond. Its pleochroism introduces shifting greens and yellows. Its low density allows large face-up appearances relative to weight. And yet, despite these attributes, Sphene remains surprisingly affordable. The reason lies in another paradox. Supply is limited, but demand remains niche. Few consumers understand dispersion beyond the diamond comparison. Jewelers rarely feature Sphene due to fragility. Major brands avoid it because it cannot withstand high wear settings. Thus, an optical masterpiece, one of nature's finest interactors with light, remains accessible to collectors willing to handle it with respect. In 2025, Sphene's affordability rests on a delicate equilibrium between brilliance and vulnerability. Should awareness grow or cutting technology advance further, demand may finally surpass supply. Once that shift occurs, prices will reflect not just rarity, but optical supremacy. Ranked 6th, Jeremejevite, the survivor of winds and glacial eras. In the desolate reaches of Namibia's Irongo Mountains, where volcanic domes rise like forgotten monuments and desert winds carve away time grain by grain, a gemstone endures that seems almost engineered for disappearance. Jeremejevite, rare, pale, and deceptively delicate, survives not because geology protected it, but because erosion simply failed to destroy it completely. Most gemstones form in the shelter of deep earth, insulated from the world's weathering forces. Jeremejevite is different. Its chemical architecture, an aluminum baryte, emerges inside pegmatites that cooled slowly at the margins of ancient granitic magma chambers. Here, aluminum, boron, and fluorine aligned in long, prismatic channels, creating crystals that appear as if carved from frozen sky. Their colors range from icy blue to honeyed gold, each shade shaped by trace elements trapped during the pegmatite's final breath. But the same pegmatites that nurtured Jeremejevite later fractured, rose, and were exposed to relentless cycles of heat and wind. Over millions of years, entire outcrops crumbled. Minerals tougher than Jeremejevite vanished first, splintered and lost. What remained were pockets of crystals lodged in crevices shielded by luck more than stability. This is the paradox of the stone. Its global rarity is not due to limited formation, but due to disproportionate destruction. In Siberia, where Jeremejevite was first identified in the late 19th century, small prismatic crystals were sometimes kept by craftsmen as tokens of clarity. Their near-water-like transparency suggested purity of intention, a symbolic guide during winter months when clarity itself felt scarce. But unlike other culturally marked gems, Jeremejevite remained mostly unbound to ritual. Its true legacy unfolded not through myth, but through geological survival. The midpoint of its story shifts when modern miners and collectors arrived. They expected a mineral of modest interest, rare, certainly, but not extraordinary. Then came the revelation. Well-formed crystals from Irango displayed an optical purity rivaling top aquamarine, yet with a geometric precision unique to Bharat structures. Under polarized light, internal channels refracted hues of glacier blue. Clean specimens, though small, appeared almost weightless, like pieces of atmosphere trapped in mineral form. Collectors began to notice. Lapidaries experimented carefully, discovering that Jeremejevite's hardness allowed facetting, but only with patience and perfect angles. A well-cut gem displayed a transparency that felt elemental, untouched by the earthly impurities common in more famous stones. The market acknowledged rarity but hesitated on value. Jeremejevite is scarce but unfamiliar. It lacks the dramatic lore of ruby, the cultural gravitas of jade, or the chromatic fire of Sphene. Its beauty is quiet, its rarity is geological, not historical. As a result, prices remain surprisingly accessible, far below what its scarcity should dictate. Yet the economics hide an inescapable truth. Jeremejevite is a finite survivor. Its crystals exist because erosion chose not to remove them entirely. New large deposits have not been found. Mining in Irango depends on small-scale, ethical extraction, with no mechanized production. Every year, fewer pockets remain. The gem is not merely rare, it is diminishing. In 2025, Jeremejevite occupies a fragile presence in the market, a survivor of processes that destroyed far more material than they preserved. Its affordability is a residue of under-recognition, not abundance. Once awareness expands, the balance between supply and demand will shift irrevocably. Where Jeremejevite survives by resisting erosion, the next gemstone owes its rarity to something more abrupt. The closure of a single deposit that once produced a blue unlike anything else on Earth. Ranked 5th. Benitoite, California's impossible blue flame. There are gemstones defined by rarity and gemstones defined by origin. Benitoite belongs to the second group. Its identity tied so tightly to a single location that the stone becomes inseparable from the land that birthed it. In the rugged foothills of San Benito County, California, a deposit once produced crystals of such electric blue that early collectors questioned whether nature could truly create such a color. The brilliance was undeniable, yet the birthplace was small, so small that when the mine closed, the gem's geological story effectively ended. Benitoite forms under conditions both complex and improbable. Its chemistry, barium-titanium silicate, requires elements that rarely converge in the same environment. The host rock, serpentinite, was once deep ocean crust thrust upward by tectonic collisions. Hydrothermal fluids carrying titanium and barium percolated through fractures, cooling inside pockets where pressure and temperature aligned with improbable precision. Crystals grew triangular, sharp, often perfectly terminated. Their color, sapphire-like but brighter, arose from trace amounts of iron and delicate structural pathways that bent light into saturated cobalt. Most gemstones reveal their beauty under intense illumination. Benitoite does the opposite. Even in soft light, it emits a vibrancy that feels almost luminescent. And under ultraviolet rays, it erupts in a blue-white glow so strong it resembles burning ice. No other gemstone fluoresces in quite the same way. This dual personality, visible brilliance and hidden fire, made it a geological outlier from the moment of its discovery. Though it lacks ancient lore, Benitoite quickly developed its own symbolic vocabulary. Collectors began associating it with duality, stone of two light worlds, visible and invisible. Its triangular form, rare among gemstones, inspired metaphors of precision and clarity. Some artisans fashioned talismans based on the triangular silhouette, representing balance among competing forces. In certain circles, the gem acquired a quiet role in meditation, chosen not for mystical power, but for its unusual interplay between structure and light. The midpoint of its story arrives not from culture, but from geology. The singular California deposit, gem mine, sometimes called Dallas or Benitoite gem mine, was never large. The veins were thin, irregular, easily exhausted. Mining was laborious, dependent on hand extraction rather than machinery. For decades, small groups of miners pulled crystals from pockets hidden inside brittle serpentine. Then, as veins dwindled, production ceased. Today, the mine is closed. New Benitoite now emerges only from old collections, occasional surface finds, or public digging events that yield more fragments than gem-quality crystals. This closure changes everything. Most rare gemstones exist in multiple localities. Benitoite does not. The California source produced material of unmatched quality. Other countries, Tanzania, Japan, have yielded traces, but none with the clarity, saturation, or fluorescence of the original. When the mine fell silent, the world lost its primary supply permanently. Economically, Benitoite occupies a paradoxical position. It is undeniably rare, yet prices remain lower than its scarcity suggests. The reason lies in perception. Many buyers confuse it with sapphire. Jewelers hesitate due to its brittleness. And because the majority of its supply predates the surge of modern gem media, public awareness remains limited. Collectors who understand geological finality quietly accumulate stones, knowing the world will never see another deposit capable of producing this caliber. In 2025, fine benitoite remains attainable, but precariously so. Its affordability is the residue of a past in which the mine produced enough material to sustain modest trade. That past no longer exists. What remains are finite crystals, preserved the way fossils are preserved, remnants of a world whose mechanisms have vanished. Ranked fourth, Scapolite cat's eye. The quiet phenomenon. In the world of gemstones, brilliance often arrives with intensity, flashes, fire, dispersion, spectral collisions. Scapolite cat's eye is the opposite. Its magic emerges from restraint. A single line of light, thin as a whisper, travels across the gem's surface with a calm that feels almost sentient. This line, this moving bar of white, forms not from color or crystal clarity, but from a phenomenon known as chatoyancy. Fibers align so perfectly, so improbably, that they bend illumination into order. For chatoyancy to appear, Scapolite must undergo a sequence of geological events with almost choreographed precision. It begins inside metamorphic terrains where calcium-rich rocks are compressed under shifting crustal masses. Fluids rich in aluminum and volatile elements infiltrate through fractures. As minerals recrystallize, Scapolite forms in long, columnar prisms. But chatoyancy requires an extraordinary second act. Microscopic, needle-like inclusions, often rutile or fibrous channels, must align parallel to one another with near-uniform spacing. Most gemstones with potential for cat's eye phenomena fail here. Their fibers scatter, twist, or clump, producing hazy reflections instead of a defined beam. Scapolite, however, under the right metamorphic pressures, organizes these fibers into disciplined rows. When a light source passes overhead, the reflection does not diffuse. It sharpens, slides, and concentrates into a line that behaves like a blade of illumination. This is emergent order, structure rising from geological chaos, coherence born from randomness. Scapolite occurs in multiple countries, Tanzania, Madagascar, Sri Lanka, but fine cat's eye specimens remain scarce. Metamorphic forces rarely strike the exact balance needed for fiber alignment. Even within a single pocket, only a fraction of crystals possess the internal architecture necessary for a clean, moving line. In highland villages, polished scapolite nodules were sometimes placed near the entrances of homes. The moving light was believed to track the shift between day and night, a visible threshold marking the moment when ancestors were said to walk more closely beside the living. This was not worship, but recognition of pattern in nature, the stone's ability to transform diffuse sunlight into a disciplined beam. The midpoint of its story arrives through physics, not tradition. Chatoyancy depends on the interaction between aligned fibers and focused light. Modern gem cutters discovered that if the dome, cabochon, is shaped with perfect curvature, the line sharpens dramatically. A well-cut scapolite cat's eye can exhibit a beam so crisp that it appears painted by a laser. This crafted perfection reveals the stone's true character, not one of extravagance, but of precision. And yet, despite its beauty, scapolite remains overlooked. Jewelers prefer more famous cat's eye gems like chrysoberyl. Collectors often dismiss scapolite as too soft, too obscure, too unpredictable. The market underestimates it not because it lacks rarity, but because it lacks narrative attention. Few realize that clean cat's eye scapolite is significantly rarer than many better-known stones. In 2025, this disconnect keeps the gem affordable. High-quality cabochons with strong chatoyancy remain within reach, especially those showing lavender or honeytones. But as global interest grows in subtle optical phenomena, and as collectors seek stones with ethical, small-scale origins, scapolite's position may shift. The coherence of its light beam, once overlooked, may become its greatest asset. No new metamorphic zones capable of producing fine fibers have been discovered. Output from known localities fluctuates yearly, often dependent on artisanal mining. The supply is not just limited, it is fragile. Ranked third, blue zircon, older than light itself. Long before continents assembled, long before the first oceans condensed from vapor, and long before Earth knew the meaning of life, zircon crystals were already forming in magma seas that no human eye will ever witness. Among them, a rare subset, blue zircon, carries the echoes of that primordial world. Every facet is a relic of deep time, a survivor from Earth's earliest attempts at solidity, shaped by forces that existed billions of years before civilizations learned to carve meaning into stone. Zircon is one of Earth's oldest minerals. Its atomic structure traps uranium and excludes lead, creating a natural geological clock. The oldest known zircons, found in the Jack Hills of Australia, date to 4.4 billion years, nearly as old as the planet itself. While blue zircon is not that old, it belongs to the same lineage. It forms in high-temperature magmas and rare pegmatites rich in zirconium, where chemical purity and intense heat create crystals capable of withstanding epochs of geological violence. The blue color emerges from a later transformation. Natural irradiation, caused by radioactive elements in surrounding rocks, alters the internal atomic lattice. Heating then restores transparency while shifting color into hues of glacier blue, storm blue, and electric sky. This cycle, irradiation, disruption, restoration, is a geological palimpsest, a rewriting of time within stone. In blue zircon, deep time does not sit quietly, it reverberates. Deposits occur in Cambodia, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar, each shaped by tectonic collisions that recycled crust for hundreds of millions of years. In these regions, blue zircon crystals lie scattered like remnants of fallen stars. Their refractive index is so high that even slight movement sends light bouncing within, creating flashes reminiscent of polished ice fragments drifting through sunbeams. In some Cambodian villages, small uncut zircons were placed in clay jars kept near rice storages, not as talismans of luck, but as silent reminders of longevity. The blue stones, durable, ancient, indestructible, represented stability across generations. Their role was symbolic rather than sacred, endurance as a form of wisdom. Yet despite its brilliance, zircon remains misunderstood. Many buyers believe the stone is brittle, confusing it with cubic zirconia, a synthetic material with no connection to zircon's ancient lineage. Others assume its color is always treated, unaware that heating is not a cosmetic process, but part of zircon's geological rebirth. As a result, a gemstone with 4 billion-year ancestry remains valued far below its rarity and optical capability. Economically, this creates one of the strangest disparities in the gem world. A stone older than life, with brilliance surpassing many fine gems, remains accessible even to modest collectors. Fine Cambodian and Sri Lankan blue zircon, intense in color, clean, and properly cut, are still priced below far more common stones such as aquamarine or tanzanite. This inversion persists because awareness is low, supply is inconsistent, and the gem lacks the branding momentum of better marketed minerals. But the reserves that yield blue zircon are not infinite. Many are alluvial deposits, secondary concentrations created by erosion of ancient source rocks. Once the gravel beds are exhausted, the original host rocks provide little additional material. No major new primary zircon mines have been found. In 2025, the affordability of blue zircon rests on a transient moment between knowledge and depletion. As collectors increasingly seek stones with deep-time narratives and ethical small-scale origins, zircon's status may shift rapidly. When that happens, the market will finally recognize the truth. Few gems carry such longevity, such optical force, and such geological history. Where blue zircon reverberates with the memory of Earth's earliest chapters, the next gemstone belongs to a far shorter moment, a sudden geological miracle whose window opened and closed before most of the world even noticed. Ranked second, Mahenge garnet. The color nature shouldn't be able to make. Mahenge garnet forms along contact zones where ancient metamorphic belts collided with younger volcanic histories. Chromium and manganese, elements that usually compete for dominance, briefly coexisted in concentrations that should have neutralized each other. Instead, for a geological instant, they aligned, creating a chromatic resonance unlike anything found elsewhere. The balance was so delicate that a shift of mere meters in host rock changed the color entirely. Only within that narrow window did garnet crystals emerge with this unique magenta glow. The Earth did not maintain this equilibrium for long. As tectonic forces shifted and cooling slowed, the trace element ratio dissolved. The window shut. New materials ceased to form. What remains today are remnants, pockets of crystals preserved by pressure, erosion, and chance. Mahenge garnet is not rare because it is deeply hidden. It is rare because the mechanism that formed it no longer exists. In Tanzania, some communities associate umbellite with transitions. Travelers crossing valleys before first light would sometimes carry pale magenta stones as markers of safe passage. The color, halfway between night and day, symbolized movement between states, darkness to light, stillness to motion, uncertainty to clarity. In local folklore, it represented the hour that belongs to neither world, a temporal boundary in which change begins. Ritual uses emerged not through ceremony, but through observation. During seasonal rites marking the first rains, polished umbellite crystals were sometimes placed in bowls of water. Under overcast skies, the gems appeared to generate their own light, soft, internal, diffused. Elders interpreted this as a reminder that renewal often begins quietly, without spectacle, in the subtle rearrangement of elements. The midpoint of Mahenge garnet's story is a testament to rarity misunderstood. For years, gemstone markets lumped umbellite into broad categories: pyrope, almandine, rhodolite. Its true identity formed from a unique interplay of trace elements when unrecognized. Dealers treated it as a variant rather than a distinct expression of geological conditions. Only recently have gemologists traced its color chemistry precisely enough to identify its singularity. What sets umbellite apart is not just hue, but harmony. Many gemstones display vibrant color. Few achieve a saturation that remains gentle at the edges. Umbellite's magenta is neither aggressive nor pale. It is balanced, refined, resonant. Under diffuse light, the stone breathes. Under directional light, it blooms. Economically, the gem occupies a precarious position. Fine umbellite remains more affordable than ruby, SPINEL, or sapphire, despite being rarer than many of them. This imbalance persists because the world has not yet learned to differentiate umbellite's unique chromatic signature from the broader garnet family. Supply is almost entirely dependent on old caches and small-scale artisanal miners. Major new pockets have not been discovered. Some experts believe the original geological conditions cannot reoccur. The trace element ratio that created umbellite was a once-only alignment. In 2025, collectors stand at the threshold of recognition. As mineralogical publications highlight umbellite's rarity, awareness grows, yet prices lag behind. This creates a fleeting window, an economic echo of the geological breach that first formed the stone, a moment of opportunity that, like its origin, will not last. Where Mahenge garnet reveals a color born from a fleeting geological moment, the final gemstone descends into a realm more elusive, defined not by presence, but by the silence of what cannot be found. In first place, Grandidierite, the ocean in absence. In Madagascar's southern coast, where wind pushes the land into shapes that resemble eroded memory, there exists a gemstone defined less by what it is than by what it withholds. Grandidierite is known for its blue-green glow, an oceanic hue suspended inside mineral walls. But its true identity lies in scarcity so profound, it borders on disappearance. Every crystal emerges from a silence in the Earth's crust, a space where geological processes approach formation, hesitated, then withdrew. Chemically, grandidierite is a magnesium iron borosilicate, a structure complex enough that it almost fails to crystallize. The mineral forms only when boron-rich fluids infiltrate metamorphic terrains under narrow pressure temperature windows. Madagascar provides such a setting, but irregularly. Its ancient coastal rocks fractured by millions of years of uplift, erosion, and tectonic drift. Within these fractures, grandidierite crystallizes in slender veins, thin as quiet breaths between collisions of earth and sea. Most of the time, the chemistry collapses, the fluid cools too quickly, the pressure shifts, the lattice fractures. Only fragments survive. The gemstone's rarity begins here, in the countless formations that never fully formed. The color, often described as lagoon blue or seagrass green, results from iron in two valence states interacting with boron. Yet even this color behaves like an echo, sometimes vivid, sometimes muted, sometimes hiding deep inside opaque masses. Fine transparent crystals exist, but so few that each one feels like a recovered sentence from a vanished language. Only in recent decades has the stone begun to speak. When miners unearthed transparent crystals in the Andromeda region, the reaction was not excitement, but disbelief. Gemologists had known the mineral for a century, but fastable pieces were considered nearly impossible. The discovery arrived like a whisper, a quiet correction to geological assumptions. The oceanic hues that now define grandidierite were revealed not in abundance, but as exceptions. The midpoint of grandidierite's story arrives in an unusual way, through confusion. For years, opaque blue-green masses were misidentified as low-grade tourmaline or dumortierite. Transparent crystals were so rare they were assumed to be other minerals entirely. Only with improved spectroscopy and optical analysis did gemologists realize how many samples had been overlooked. Even today, the majority of grandidierite in the world is misclassified, lost in drawers, mislabeled in collections, or hidden within mixed parcels. The world possesses more of it than it recognizes, yet less of it than it needs. In 2025, grandidierite's affordability rests on a fragile threshold. The deposits that produced faceable material have dwindled. Rumors of new sources surface, then dissolve without confirmation. Each year, fewer crystals appear. Most are opaque. Only a fraction approach transparency. The supply does not just decline, it fades. Grandidierite is a gemstone shaped by what is missing. The mines that never opened, the crystals that never formed, the color that almost failed to appear. Its beauty is the beauty of scarcity. Its presence a reminder that the earth often speaks in absences. Where grandidierite ends, silence begins. The kind of silence that invites reflection, not closure. It appears briefly, then slips away before the world fully understands it. These 10 gemstones are not precious because they shine, but because the earth will never make them the same way again. Some were born from vanished volcanoes, some from fractures that opened once, some from colors nature almost failed to complete. So now the question belongs to the viewer. Which of these stones should never have remained affordable? And which one will be the first to disappear from the world's hands?